Welcome. Today I'm introducing Talk About Texts. It's a rich resource, mainly digital, but with an option for print for the student reading books, designed to build children's vocabulary, talk and comprehension. It's quite unique. Talk About Texts can work in parallel with a phonic programme like Snappy Sounds to ensure that children are developing vocabulary, talk and comprehension in texts that may not be immediately accessible to them as independent readers. What does that mean? It means the texts are not decodable. They're for a different purpose, and that's really important. It roughly supports 4 to 9-year-olds with reading recovery levels from 1 to 30 plus across 4 different levels. It can also run alongside resources like Springboard into Comprehension, spelling rules and grammar rules for focused emphasis on written comprehension, spelling and grammar, as the titles suggest. The aim of Talk About Texts is simple. It's to enrich children's vocabulary and talk and to develop comprehension using structured and reading recovery level texts. It works for whole class teaching or small guided groups, and it supports teachers, including those who are less experienced, and I'll be showing you how. Talk About Texts has a manageable structure, not too many components to juggle, and an emphasis on ease of use. So I'm going to walk you through the key elements. There are teacher guides, and these house assessment and progress tracking resources, including guidance on planning, learning pathways, and how to best support English language learners. There are assessment exemplars and reflection sheets. More about these later. On the teacher dashboard online, teachers can view student data and allocate books. The student reading books are available as print and e-books. There are 4 sets, foundation to set 3, and each set includes 35 to 45 books. That's around 160 titles in total. So there's a huge richness here for children to read and enjoy and talk about. The e-books have a read-to-me audio of the texts with the usual whiteboard toolkit tools such as pen and highlighter, obviously also available. For support in Foundation and Set 1, students may click on a word to hear the audio if they get stuck. This is hugely supportive and will encourage small group work as well as independent work. The texts are high quality and levelled. They cover cross-curricular topics and a range of fiction and non-fiction text types. They include artwork and photographic images. But here is the real hit. Every student book has an identical teacher edition with teaching prompts which ensure rigour and a consistent approach. The prompts will feature strongly in the next section about how a lesson might look. There are also digital flashcards to use as talk prompts with students, and these are also available in print. More about these later too. There are student activity sheets for every book, and these support independent practice and writing links. For homeschool links, the read-to-me audio of the student books, the suggested word games and the student activity sheets in the teacher's guides all offer great opportunities. Talk About Texts lessons are carefully constructed to enable the teacher to teach to the whole class using a digital text on a screen for all to see. This allows for effective modelling, invites repeated reading and activates a range of talk strategies. Or a lesson may be set up with a guided reading group of say 5 to 8 children. Teachers may select different books for different groups based on known reading ages or reading recovery lessons. This chart clearly shows the process. After planning, there is a clear before reading stimulus that involves activating prior knowledge, encouraging predictions, and introducing vocabulary. You can see that on the chart. Children then read the text with teacher prompts to check understanding, teacher modelling, and structured use of talk strategies as mentioned previously. And after reading, children complete the activities, which include let's think about it, let's talk about it, and let's write about it. They explain ideas, justify answers, and explore new vocabulary. The independent reading part of the lesson is for students to reread the text and to complete the activity sheet and to use written work to reassess comprehension skills. And some of this may be completed at home. So now we've talked about the process involved in Talk About Text. Let's have a look inside a couple of the reading books so that you can see how the two versions actually work. I'm going to show you the teacher edition and use it to explain the sort of support that is included. I made reference to the before reading section, and we talked about reminding ourselves how to activate prior knowledge, to encourage prediction, to introduce the vocabulary for teaching, and here we've got talk activities as well. So there's a really nice chart at the beginning of each book that talks about the vocabulary, the high frequency words, and talk strategies, which is really a unique feature of Talk About Texts. In this instance, it's actually called wait time. And it says that students often require time to clarify their thinking. And sometimes as teachers, we're keen to move on quite quickly. But this strategy is especially important for reluctant talkers. Let's pause, give them some wait time while they're thinking about what it is they want to say. A wait time of about 7 seconds is recommended. So this is just an example of one of the key strategies to encourage all children to be involved in the talk about the book. The information about the level of the book is included on the inside front cover too. This is a reading level 2. This tells us this is a factual record, and there are 41 words. And it's about a little boy getting ready for school. So inside you can see I have the facsimile of the children's book. The children are holding their book, and this is my teacher edition. And surrounding the facsimile of what the children are looking at, I have my teacher prompts. Say, read, check understanding, and talk. So for example, say, it says, let's read page 2 together. Look at the photograph and talk about the clothes you can see. And whether I'm doing this as whole class or with a guided reading group, that instruction works just as well. I give the children a chance to talk to each other about the photograph. The next instruction I'm going to give them is, or it gives me, is read page 2 together with the students and then look at the photograph. So we'd say, I get my clothes for school. And I might, because this is a very early level book, I might say, I get my clothes for school. I may get the children to read it with me in a choral reading kind of way. But next I'm going to check their understanding. We've looked at the picture, the photograph in this instance, we've read the text, I've read it to them, they might have joined in with me. And then I might say, what does the boy get for school? And the children would hopefully realise they get their clothes. He gets his clothes ready for school. What clothes can you see in the photograph? So they might identify it's a shirt and trousers. And then on the right-hand side, always are the talk prompts. So what text type do you think this is? So we can establish this is a a non-fiction text about a little boy and getting ready for school. It also provides some sentence structures. Here we've got, I think this is a, and I think this because. So we're really training children to use these sentence structures. I think this is a story. Oh no, it's not a story. It's a non-fiction text. It's about this little boy, and so on. The next question is, who do you think is telling us this recount? By now we've established it's a recount. And again, we get the sentence structures. I think is telling this recount. I think this because. So again, we're using very controlled sentence starters to support the children to express themselves really clearly. And finally, what did he do first? First, he got his clothes ready for school. So lots of support, and we won't go through every page, but you can see how supportive that is at every level. We get the same structure. If we look at a slightly higher book, this is also a non-fiction but photographic. So you can see this is the teacher's edition, clearly flagged on the spine. And when we open it, we get the same before reading, encouraging prediction. This one is reading level 12. The previous one was 2. So it's a little bit more difficult. We again get a talk strategy. We get a lovely power chat here, which means that children introduce the topic in their own way using short, sharp and focused language. And you can give them a little bit of time to prepare for that. And then as we open, because this is a higher level, you can see here we have a contents page, but the prompts at the side are exactly the same. Say, read, check understanding, and then the talk prompts down the other side. So whichever level you're operating at within the 4 sets, you will find that structure. And we didn't look at the end of the book that we just spoke about, but here at the end of every book, there's an after reading section where you get, let's think about it. So what new facts did you learn about nuts that you did not already know? Or looking back through the text, a kind of reflection, what question do you have about the nuts in the book? And then you have a let's talk about it. Discuss your answers in a small group. The new facts I learnt about nuts are, again, those sentence structures to support children's oracy. And then finally on the inside back cover, always a let's write about it. So we do trip into writing, but mainly this programme is about developing children's talk. Here it's write the following sentence starters into your book. Finish the sentences. Something I already knew about nuts was. And one interesting fact I learnt about nuts. So it's quite a supported written activity. So that's how these resources are structured throughout the whole programme. Talk About Texts supports integrated formative assessment of oral language skills, vocabulary, word reading, some phonics and comprehension strategies. Pro formas are available in the teacher guides to print, or they're available online to download. Teacher guides include an assessment overview, assessment exemplars, which provide typical student responses categorised by green, amber or red, and tracking sheets for individual or guided reading groups. Here's one of the overview, the assessment exemplars. So it categorises phonics, word knowledge and fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, speaking and listening. And then it gives an exemplar question. So for example, for comprehension, what did you learn from reading the text? In this case, the text was called Where Do You Work? And then it gives a green response, an amber response, and a red response to listen out for. And you can copy these and colour code them depending on which student you're working with. So a green response might be, that the student explains that they learnt people can work on boats and planes and farms, beaches, roads, stages and at school. An amber response might be students' response, they list about 4 places people can work, so less comprehensive. And a red response, it might be that the student demonstrates a limited understanding of the information they've gained from reading the text, and they may just be able to give you 1 or perhaps 2 examples of what they learnt. That would suggest perhaps they've not fully comprehended the text. So really helpful and available for every text in the programme. So really valuable teacher assessment. I also mentioned tracking sheets which are available for individual or guided reading group records, and these are available online to download or again in the teacher's resource book. So you can see here this asks you to say what the reading book is and obviously the all-important date. You may add the students' names in this column, and then you can actually make your observations across those 5 categories that we looked at in the exemplar sheets. So phonics, word knowledge and fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, speaking and listening. You can add your notes and you can put next steps. So a very simple pro forma as a tracking sheet, but really valuable to keep up to date as students move through the texts. For catch-up, Talk About Texts suggests small intervention group work, short and focused. And probably one of the most valuable suggestions is rereadings of familiar texts. That's so that children can build their confidence and their fluency. And there are so many books in Talk About Texts, and there are so many supports to encourage those who are less confident in speaking up or less sophisticated in their vocabulary options, that you can really afford to let children return to books that they have really enjoyed. And that's a very persuasive argument for a catch-up approach. Also within the teacher's resource book are the very useful teacher reflection sheets. These can be used every 6 to 8 weeks to enable you to reflect on your own teaching and learning. Here's an example. It's a very simple structure. It asks a question about the lesson, and it enables you to add your notes and actions. Very useful to then subsequently share with other colleagues who are using the same programme. So, typical questions: what went well? What will you continue to do? How is your assessment data helping you to plan? What could be improved? Which students require further support? You might look back then at your tracking sheets for the details of those. How will you support those students? What resources do you require? And how can your colleagues support you with this? So these aren't specific to Talk About Text. These are general questions about reflecting on your practice, but very useful nonetheless, and a very good habit to get into. So why is Talk About Text so fantastic as a resource? Well, it stands out for its clarity, structure, and teacher support. The teacher editions of the student books are a real strength. And whether you're a less experienced teacher or a more experienced teacher, it feels very comforting to have those prompts so easily accessible and without interrupting the work the children are doing and enjoying. The texts are superb. They're levelled, engaging and rich in vocabulary. They cover cross-curricular topics and a wide range of genre. The focus on talk is powerful. Children learn to explain, to justify and discuss their ideas. The digital tools, audio support, and the PD videos, the personal development videos, make it easy for teachers to deliver very high quality lessons. Overall, Talk About Text helps every child become a confident, articulate reader who can understand, discuss, and write about texts.